Thank you everyone for attending the third session of the Remote Chicago Small Business Expo. We will be starting the keynote address now. The keynote is a conversation between BACP Commissioner Ken Meyer and keynote speaker Luke Saunders, CEO and founder of Farmer's Fridge. See you soon.
And thank you again to the Women Business Development Center for that amazing webinar. At this time, it's now time for our keynote presentation. Before we get started, I wanted to provide some information. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. And now we will start our keynote address. Go ahead with our Commissioner Ken Meyer.
Thank you, Stella. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for participating with today's free virtual Small Business Expo. I can assure you, if you can hang out a little bit longer, you're really going to enjoy the conversation that we're about to have with Luke Saunders. Before I get started, again, I just want to thank Mayor Johnson for his ongoing efforts to support the small business here in the city of Chicago. And also, I really want to give a huge thanks and just a big thank you, virtual hug to our sponsors from Western Union, Wintrust Bank, and CIBC Bank USA. Also, our partnership with City of Chicago Colleges and the Chicago Treasurer's Office. It is because of their commitment to the small business community that we offer this expo for free and remotely. So I believe we are ready to get started. Is Luke on, Stella?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Luke.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Part of this remote expo is a conversation with a Chicago business success story. And with us today is Luke Saunders, founder and CEO of Farmer's Fridge, headquartered right here in Chicago. An entrepreneur at heart, Luke started the company while working as a traveling salesman after struggling to find fresh, healthy, and accessible food options while he was on the road. Since 2013, the rapidly expanding business has grown to 1,200 fridge locations across the country and established a strong retail presence with partners including Target and Costco. Luke has been honored as a Forbes 30 Under 30, a Crane Chicago Business 40 Under 40, and one of Fast Company's 100 Most Creative People in Business. Welcome, Luke, and thank you for being here to share your story.
Thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here.
Thank you. Before we talk business, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into this this niche that you're in now. And I think I myself think it's a fascinating story. So without further ado, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Well, thank you again. It's really a pleasure to be here. And my background is actually in small business. So I started about 15 years ago. I had a bike rental company and really loved entrepreneurship and small business. And I went to work for a small grease lubricant manufacturing business based in New York City. And then my wife got into law school in Michigan, and I was looking for a job, and I started selling metal finishing, which for anybody who's not familiar, think of like a nonstick pan for industrial use. So my job was to drive 1,000 miles a week, meet with manufacturers and engineers across the Midwest, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. And one of the biggest challenges I had was trying to find fresh, healthy food on the road. So when we were getting ready to move to Chicago, I had this idea that if you made fresh food in one place and distributed it through vending machines, which turns out 100 million people today are going to visit a vending machine. So it's the most convenient form of food service that there is. You could make fresh, healthy food as accessible as a candy bar. But really, my mentality started as a small business. I started in a shared kitchen on the west side of Chicago called Kitchen Chicago. I went down to BACP and applied for my first permit, and actually took some of these same business trainings to understand how to manage my P&L and get new customers and try to get partnerships or get into places like the airport in the city of Chicago. So found that invaluable. And here we are 10 years later, we operate the 1,200 fridges that you mentioned, over 500 retail stores, and still make all the food right where I'm sitting at our facility right outside Midway Airport.
That's a great story. And from when you and I had talked previously or a little bit earlier, you were actually like on the road when you were living in Michigan, traveling, I think you said to 11 states. And you probably had a lot of time in your car seeing some of the glorious Midwest countryside to just kind of think and kind of brainstorm within yourself about this new concept. And I always tell people, even as a commissioner, running a department, or certainly a business owner or an entrepreneur, I don't think we often give ourselves enough time or enough credit to make the time to really just be able to kind of think creatively, and just tell us a little bit about that, and how you kind of got into the process of the blueprint model, because it's a really, really neat concept. And I'm sure after you had your 60th meal in a diner with everything fried, you're like, okay, enough is enough. I need something a little more healthy.
Yeah, and I loved that food, just wanted to have more options, basically. So yeah, I mean, I had a lot of time to think. When you're driving 1,000 miles a week, that's 20 or 30 hours of drive time. I listened to a lot of books on tape. So I made my way through some really great business advice books, and also just general like science fiction or interesting other books that were not business related. But it really living that problem, I think that's one thing for every business owner or person looking to start a business to really think about is, what puts you in a position to understand this problem better than anybody else? And I was living with the problem that I was trying to solve. And then, kind of moving forward, it's sort of like if you've had kids before, there's like the time before where you're planning and you're setting their room up and everything. It seems like a lot, and you've got this anticipation, but it's nothing compared to like when it actually happens. So before I started the business, I had, or before I opened the fridge, I should say, there was a lot of time to plan and think through things. And then as soon as the first day hit, all of that went out the window. And I was chopping lettuce and delivering salads and fixing vending machines and taking sales calls. So I do think like that planning and preparation piece and making sure that you've got a plan, because there's one thing that we talk about a lot here is, planning is very important, but it usually is like goes out the window as soon as you start to execute. But having that plan and knowing what you're operating against. But yeah, I actually think I probably went too quickly at the beginning, and you're always trying to find a balance of, you don't want to sit there and plan forever and never get anything done, but making sure that you give yourself some space and recognize as soon as you start operating or customers are coming through that door, your life is going to change a lot and you'll have a lot less time. And now I actually carve out that time in my day or in my week to make sure that I can keep working on the business, not just working in the business.
No, I appreciate that. Let's just expand that just a little bit more. So you're on the road, you're thinking, okay, we're gonna do fresh food, we're gonna do a vending machine. Okay, great concept. So now are you spending a lot of your time looking at vending machines, taking photos of vending machines, researching vending companies, or are you actually like, oh, there's that farm. I'm gonna swing by the farm, look at the fresh food and see if they can, because it's a little bit of a two-prong approach. But probably similar to a lot of even other small business owners. They're all looking for the brick and mortar. What's a great location. At the same time, like if they're going to open up a restaurant, what do I want to put on the menu? So kind of just expand a little bit on that, please.
Yeah, I think for every entrepreneur, small business owner, like your time is your most valuable resource, and you don't always have money to hire people to help you. So you have to be even more disciplined about it. And so how I spent my time at the very beginning, first, I needed to really understand food service and what it was going to take to buy produce and process produce. I actually volunteered at like a soup kitchen where I was living at the time. I went to a restaurant that I really liked their food and said, hey, maybe I could like pay you a little bit of money to let me be here and ask a lot of questions. And they thought I was totally nuts, but it was actually a great deal for both of us. And just really learning. And then once I was into the needed to start executing phase, most of my time got spent on building the menu and finding a location. So the vending machine, I actually went to a vending machine. I spent a lot of time on like that in the research phase, like watching TV and you're looking things up online. But ultimately, what was most helpful was just going to a vending machine trade show and walking the floor and talking to vendors. And it was very obvious what we should be using based on that in-person interaction. So I would say 85% of my time was spent on finding that first location and making sure it was the right location, and then making sure we had the right menu to execute against. And then once I got up and running, like I said, everything went out the window. We were sort of at 80% of my time got spent executing the day-to-day operations of the business. And if I was lucky, 20% of my time was business development and sales. But that was sort of the progression. And now mostly it's working with the team and our partners to continue to grow the business.
That's good. I appreciate that. I'm going to ask one more question with regards to the actual vending machine before we go on to the actual food. Just describe, for those who have not seen a farmer's fridge, just describe the vending machine, which is really very unique. Obviously, you have the vending machine with the food. You have and I asked you the other day, I'm like, what do I do with the bowl that my salad comes in? Do I take it home, reuse it? So, and then also, how do I get my silverware and stuff? So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. Well, so I think that's it. We every salad that you buy, there's an opportunity to return that jar right back to the fridge itself. We've been doing that since the very first day. We also have donated food over the last 10 years. I think we've donated 2 million meals. But it started with me saying, we can't waste this food. And I would actually drive it from the food court downtown to a Franciscan Ministries outpost. And I had to call around to see who actually wanted it. But part of that was, if you're starting a business from scratch, there's certain things you want to try to do differently, and build a better business as you grow. And the things that you start small, it's a lot easier. If I were to tell the team tomorrow I start recycling all the jars, that would be a really big hill to climb.
Yeah.
But because we started small, it was easy. But on the other side, there's other things that you're going to learn are not worth the effort and you should stop doing. And so that's the fun part about iterating on a business, is really talking to customers, listening to them, hearing their feedback, and incorporating the good things into your business. And if it's a good idea from customers, it means that you actually will make more money. So because you've solved a problem in a more robust way for them.
Appreciate that. So I think a lot of us, when we think about a vending machine, we're thinking about sweet foods, bag of Doritos, Snickers bar, maybe a Coke. Certainly not the healthiest options. I know in our suite here, if I'm working late, I'm just starving. Like it is not really healthy options. On the other hand, Farmer Fridge offers the Cobb salads, the chia pudding, which I tried the other day, delicious, with the strawberry in it too. How did you come up with the food selections? And was the idea, I guess the idea was always to have a healthier option, but just tell us a little bit more about like the food, the beverages, like all in one.
Yeah. So on the healthy food side, obviously that was core. We wanted to provide healthy options. We wanted to make fresh food as accessible as a candy bar. But the reason we say it that way is I don't want it to be fresh food and healthy food that you have to kind of hold your nose and eat because it doesn't taste good. The idea was, if it tastes really good, if it's affordable, if it's convenient, you'll stop thinking about healthy food. You'll just think, this is food and I like it. So that was really the principle at the very beginning. And so things like the chia pudding, which are actually pretty great snack, sweet item, have always been on the menu. But initially, I didn't have any money to work with the culinary team. I had to really focus on, I got a couple of recipes that I liked from the local cafe, and I actually went to the same cafe that I volunteered at and said, hey, can I use some of these on my menu? Would that be okay with you? And because it was in another state, she was totally fine with it, very generous. But then I had maybe 2 or 3 items, none of which are still on the menu. I had to come up with the other 10. And one of the things that I learned was about a year later, I had originally, my office was in the food court and I was talking to customers. And when you ask customers a question directly in person, they're going to probably tell you what you want to hear. Most people don't want to say the things that they don't really like, but we ran a survey via email And we found out that 95% of people liked Farmer's Fridge. 95% of people thought it was convenient and a good value, but only 50% of people liked the food.
Oh,
So one of the first investments we made at that point in time was a culinary person to support improving the menu. And that was really the first salaried role I could afford. And so now everything that's on the menu goes through a culinary team, and they really work with customers and clients to understand what they want. And then we iterate hundreds of times. But at the very beginning, it was just trying our best to make something great and then listening to customers' feedback on the things that they did like and the things that they didn't like, and then improving them over time. But you can still get your business off the ground with those initial MVP products.
no, I appreciate that. Now, just based on that this last piece, I now have two kind of questions. I'm going to go down, I'm going to continue going down the customer, and you're connecting with them. So when you were just starting out the one, you're in the food court, you're talking to people, you're actually having a kind of a live interaction with the customers. How are you doing that today? Now that you guys have expanded, you're all over, you're not just in Chicago, but all over the place, you're in busy airports. So how do you kind of connect with your customers, making sure that the food that you're serving is what they want to eat? I suppose you're also getting data off the machines themselves. So why don't you answer that, and I'll get back into the food again.
Yeah, so I mean, we try really hard to get as much data as we can on what's selling well and what's not. So from the very beginning, that was one of the ideas of using a vending machine, is you're going to know all the things that are selling because it's connected to the internet, and you can understand at the customer level, did you buy that chia pudding and you liked it, you bought it again, or did you buy it once and you never came back? And so we use a lot of that underlying data to optimize the menu. So if we see something sells really well, but people aren't buying it twice, that's great. It means they liked the idea, but they didn't like the actual product and how we delivered it. So we need to change and reformulate. On the other end, you have products where they have very low trial rates, but people buy them again and again and again. And so that's an opportunity to tell more people about that great product. But I also personally will call up customers. So certain complaints, or once in a while I'll get somebody, we'll actually have the marketing team send me send me a number of a customer and let me give that person a call. But just talking to customers, sending surveys, those are the two primary ways, and looking at the data on what's actually happening. Those are the three buckets that I would use. And when you talk to a customer, it's a lot of their opinion, but it's very helpful, and they'll give you insights you won't get from a spreadsheet. When you look at the data, you'll kind of see what's the true answer here. And then through surveys, it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and I think that's really very important, because if you were just a restaurateur, right, in a brick and mortar storefront, you probably would work your floor and kind of talk to your customers similarly to what you did when you just had the one location at the food court. And now that you have them all over the place, you still need that kind of interaction. How does it pain you when your favorite thing, the thing you must to go to for lunch, and your team says, Luke, it's just not selling. You're like the only guy.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt as much as it used to. It used to hurt a lot, and I initially thought, hey, I'm good at this. I have good taste, and really once I started to get that customer feedback. So if you think about like a chef, people on the floor may say the food is great to your face, but then the plates are coming back full.
Yeah.
That probably hurts. But if you once I realized that just by asking and letting it not be about what I thought was good, we would sell more food and customers would like us more, and that supported our mission. It's been great. So I actually have almost no say. I could certainly give my input based on what I've seen over the last 10 years, but what I say is it should be based on what our customers want, what the data says. And I get a little disappointed now when something's discontinued just because I personally like eating it. But I also understand that the process works, and it's not my opinion that we should be driving the whole business on.
Thank you for that. Let's just talk a bit on the food. How do you guarantee that the food is fresh? I mean, I think for some of our viewers today, they're hearing about your concept for the first time, and I encourage everyone to go out and find one, just to look at it, take a photo of it, and hopefully even buy something. But how do you guarantee the freshest food? Talk to us a little about that.
So the idea at the beginning is really the same thing that we do today. If you're going to guarantee fresh food, you got to get the freshest ingredients in. You got to cut them up right before you put it into that jar, and then you got to get it to people as quickly as is physically possible without breaking the law. You don't want to go faster than the speed limit. But that's the same idea as what we do. Like, so I used to wait outside the produce distribution center at 4 a.m. to pick up the produce and drive it, and we'd chop it and we'd put it in the jar and we'd put it in the fridge a few hours later. Obviously today that works a little bit differently, but we actually are able now to work with farms to say, hey, this is when we want the product to get here. So if you harvested it, you have 3 days to get it to Chicago and into our facility. And then our team here is looking at how quickly we cycle it through and actually get it into the products and get it to customers. So there's a lot just the mentality and building our operating model around fresh food. The other aspect is we have a lot of technology that we were able to build as we got more mature to allow us to track the inventory, to be able to do demand planning and forecasting. So every single day right now at the facility that I'm in, we're making the food. We don't know where it's going yet. We're going to decide at around 6 o'clock. So at 6 o'clock today, an algorithm will run. It'll say, this is where you send everything. And then we'll actually pack all this, like all the product will get picked and sorted into the different routes that it's going on and sent out tonight. But we had to kind of build all the infrastructure from scratch, which is why, like, you know, that took years, but at the beginning it was the same mentality. We're going to get the freshest ingredients in, we're going to chop them up and get them to people as quickly as possible. We're just able to do that in smarter ways today.
Very good, very good. I know I'm at City Hall in downtown Chicago on the South Street, and I know just within my walking distance, thank you very much, because they don't always, in fact, I'm actually getting hungry talking about this as I realize it's noon. But like there's three farmers fridges right here in the Central Business District, very quick to City Hall. How did you start your placement? Like, did you just go door to door to property managers, building managers? How did you get into the airports? And you're even at the Target, grocery stores, etc.
Yes, so this is where having a sales background definitely helps. You know, you sort of get used to calling people up out of the blue and asking them to take some time to meet with you. But at the very beginning, once I sort of had the menu in a good place and I got I knew where I was buying the fridge from. I hadn't actually paid for it yet because I didn't have a location. And so I actually just walked downtown, kind of block by block, looking for rent signs or buildings that I thought would be a good fit. And then I would try to figure out who was managing the building or who was the broker that was representing the space that the building had. And I would call them up and they'd send them an email. I had basically a picture of what I thought the fridge was going to look like, but there was no actual fridge yet. And most people actually said no. You know, 100 people in a row that I thought would love the idea of more fresh food options in their space were absolutely not interested. And I finally found one food court in the Loop that was actually destined to go bankrupt and shut down a year later. So they were really desperate for my rent money. And we were able to negotiate a deal. But that first location really helped to get all the other ones to understand, oh, I see, like they had to physically come visit it and see it. And so it's trying to figure out, how do you find that first location or that first MVP that can get people to see your vision? Because as a small business owner or entrepreneur, sometimes you can see it very clearly, but the market doesn't. And then from there, it was continuing that process of cold outreach and explaining the benefits and really trying to go directly to the people in the building. So rather than calling the broker, you get the people that work in the building to call the broker and say, hey, I would like this here. And finally, as we got larger, we were able to get larger partnerships. So like the O'Hare Airport, we started by going to the meetings that are hosted quarterly to understand how to get in the airport. One of the things they'll tell you is they want to have a couple years of operating history on your concept because operating in the airport is very challenging. They want to make sure that you can keep up. And so things like that, like I was able to learn that and be patient and continue to get the word out. And now I think we have about 20 locations at O'Hare and 4 or 5 at Midway. But yeah, it was just that walking the street and reaching out and calling people and being persistent. And a lot of people, those 100 people that said no at the very beginning, 5 years later, I think 90% of them had said yes. So just understanding like everybody's got their deal cycle and they want to understand the value proposition, the different levels of risk. But yeah, it's just a very basic contract negotiation once you get them to engage with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you promoting our quarterly webinar on how you can work with the city of Chicago's 2 airports, because we're always looking for concessionaires. How did a morning like today work for you guys? Just kind of give us a little bit of the back of the house. You know, I think both the airports had, per the news this morning when I woke up, had a little bit of a ground stop. I can't remember if it was both landing or taking off, but obviously then the concourses get busier, flights are getting delayed, travelers are getting hungrier. And I'm just wondering then if you're seeing, you know, an uptick in your sales due to nothing happening in the air and the skies due to thunderstorms. And then how do you guys know, boy, we better replenish because we're still going to have our lunchtime or the afternoon, you know, evening crowd leaving Chicago coming into Chicago.
Yeah, so to answer the first part, I actually think we might do less sales today because flights are going to get canceled. We'll have less volume through O'Hare, like the total number of people passing through will be less.
Those are smart people. Those are people that actually look at their app before they go out to the airport.
Yeah, or their flight may never have gotten in, so who knows? But in general, our occasion is for people who go to the airport a lot, who are in a hurry. So the flight attendant that's running from one plane to the next, if they have a ton of time between flights, they might have time to sit down and get lunch. But in terms of rebalancing it, we do see, you know, if everyone's stuck there for 2 days, that does create problems and inventory gets low. So that's where that real-time visibility in the fridge itself and the rebalancing that we do. So we go to the airports twice a day. So that food gets allocated at 6 p.m., but for 2 stockings tomorrow. And then if we really get stuck, we can send another person out. But it's just send more food, basically, if you see it selling. And because we know that in real time, we're able to adjust.
Now, you had started this whole concept and you were off to the races before I actually came to the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. I was in a previous department. But I would love to have been the fly on the wall when you come into the Small Business Center to meet with one of our small business consultants to say, oh, I'm gonna make salads, throw it into a jar, and put the jar in the vending machine. So this is the beauty of being a business consultant here at the Small Business Center, because you get to hear all these kind of concepts and really try to help work with the entrepreneur to make something work. So just give us a little bit about your experience with BACP, and also at that point where you're interacting with any of you know, the chambers across the city, like the Chicagoland Chamber.
So like I said, I was actually super excited when I got the offer to do this today because I am a BACP customer and I didn't go to business school. So I was trying to learn business as I went, and the programs that were offered by the city were very helpful in doing that. So they had like mentorship opportunities that were passed on as part of applying for those permits. But actually, because of how unique this business idea was, I applied online and was referred to the office to discuss that. And it was very efficient. I showed up, I got my number. I think I was meeting with someone in about 30 minutes. And her name was Kathy Garcia. So if she's still involved with the health department, thank you very much for working this through. But she was able to basically say, okay, well, you're going to need a shared kitchen permit and a retail establishment permit because you're really doing both, and here's how that will work. So it took a little bit of working through, but it was extremely helpful. And it also forced me to ask some questions and take some courses that I didn't know I needed to take. So like my food service manager license that I went and did with the Illinois Restaurant Association to understand how to handle food safely was a requirement for me to get my permit, which turns out is a very important part of running a fresh food business. So that really kicked off my journey of learning more about fresh food. I had to get a copy of the vending machines schematics and understand how it worked and how was it going to keep food safe and cold. So a lot of the steps that I had to go through were actually pretty helpful. And at the time, I wanted to get my license as quickly as possible and get going. But in retrospect, it was very helpful to have that feedback and a partner, and they were very collaborative. It was a great experience.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I want to change topics just real quick, and I know you and I talked about this earlier. You know, right about now, I don't really have the dates. 4 years ago, the world sort of changed the way all of us know it during the pandemic, right? During the COVID pandemic. And basically, because I'm in downtown every day at City Hall, basically like the central business district just kind of came to a complete stop. Office towers closed, people had to work from home. We leadership at City Hall continue to come down every single day. And I always said back in the day, like the Starbucks closed even, like we saw more people walking their dogs on the streets in the Loop than we did like actual business commuters, people going to their offices. So 2020, you're in office places downtown, everything has to come to a standstill. Like all businesses, like all small businesses, you must have been like, okay, what the heck do I do now? I don't even know if I can get back in the building to get the food out. That's there. Kind of just tell us a little bit how you pivoted and just kind of that entrepreneurial thinking to pivot during the city statewide closure.
I mean, there's a lot of things that are very hard about starting a business or running a business, and this group that's watching all knows all those things. So every day is a challenge, and a new thing gets thrown at you, and you got to adapt and evolve and work through it. So in some ways, when the pandemic hit, that was as a small business, as an entrepreneur, we were prepared to adapt because every day there's something in the world that's trying to put you out of business. And so it was great because we kind of got to dust off that earlier thinking and being flexible and bring a larger team along on that journey. And at the end of the day, what we were able to say is our business is not about making food and selling it in vending machines to people who work downtown. Our business is to make fresh, healthy food as accessible as a candy bar. And we have this great distribution network. We have a sales team. We make all the food and we can send it wherever we want every day. That's what I was just describing. So people are still going to want to eat. They're going to be really stressed out, and maybe they knew which restaurant they went to downtown last week, but now they're sheltered in place at home and they don't know where to go or what to get. So let's just adapt to sending food to their houses. And that way our drivers could stay employed and we could keep them busy. And so we set up a Shopify website. I mean, literally the same website that probably a lot of people on this call are going to build or have already built, threw our products on there and started taking orders. And then the other end, we were working with a lot of hospitals. And so we had our sales team reach out. We didn't try to sell anything. We just said, it seems like you're having a really hard time right now. Is there anything we can do to help? And a number of hospitals actually took us up on the idea of sending more fresh food. And so we were able to really create those two new lines of business and adapt. And so over about 8 weeks, we got a lot of our revenue back. But we were fortunate in that we had that flexible distribution system versus being just one geography.
That's great. That's great. And today, how important is the app? Do you know what percent of your customers are ordering off the app before they go to a fridge versus those who just walk, take a chance, see what's there, and then order right at the actual machine?
Yeah, I think about 30% of our transactions are app-based. But we didn't even have an app for maybe 4 or 5 years into the business. When I started, it was just the fridge and you ordered from the fridge. And we knew over time, one of the biggest issues for customers was you don't know what's going to, if you kind of built it up in your head, I'm going to have XYZ thing for lunch, and then you get there and it's sold out. That doesn't happen very often at Chipotle. So it was consistent feedback that we were, people were disappointed when something was sold out. And so we built the app in response to customer feedback so that they would be able to purchase things through the app, reserve them. You don't have to worry about it. It's there waiting for you. You don't even have to touch the fridge anymore. You can actually just type in a code and pick it up. And actually this week we launched first meal free in the app promotion, because people's biggest barrier is still, how do I trust fresh food from a vending machine? And I can tell you all the wonderful things that I'm doing to make it fresh and delicious, but really just give you a chance to try it for free, so that you can believe it for yourself.
Let's talk a little bit about your marketing strategy and tell me about your original marketing strategy all those years ago and how that strategy may have changed since you started. And do you use social media, or how do you push out the app, that type of marketing?
So marketing for us, marketing in general, I think for any business, one of the most challenging things you can do. It can be expensive, trial and error, and trying to figure out exactly how to get your message out. But what we do is very localized. So the fridge itself, we invested a lot of time and effort in making sure that the fridge looked clean and the food was the first thing that you saw, and the touchscreen featured beautiful pictures of the food. The jars themselves and having those look appealing, and what we consistently hear from customers when we ask them, well, how do you know it was fresh? It's they look at the food and they decide if it's fresh or not. So that's really where we invested our time and effort, was having the machine look the right way, having the right products looking fresh every time. And then we'll do localized, like we'll work with the building owner to send out email, or we'll put flyers around the cafeteria. This first meal free promotion is really, again, it's not something that we're paying for media to promote. We're just putting it into the app and telling people through the screen, reaching out to our clients and telling them, hey, everyone in the building today is going to get this offer if you send it out. And so just trying to figure out how can you push the word out organically, without having to pay for media. But the one thing that has worked very well in the past when we've done it, so when we were trying to get new delivery customers during COVID for the home delivery program, we did run Facebook ads. And so social media advertising can be very targeted and very effective for the right types of products. It's not as effective as getting somebody to walk, 3 blocks to go to a fridge. But for somebody who's hungry and looking for lunch at home, they were Googling about it and would find ads either through Google or on social media.
Yeah. And again, congratulations on all the recognitions you've had from some major magazines, such as Forbes that I mentioned earlier. How has such recognition helped? And then how do you kind of fold sort of like the free media into your marketing? And how does that kind of just help promote your business?
Sure. Well, it starts, obviously it's a good way to disappoint people when you have all these accolades and then you hop on and you're just a normal, nothing you say is that riveting, but it does help with the business, because it helps us. First of all, everyone's skeptical about fresh food from a vending machine. So understanding that it's other people have vetted this and they're interested in it. I think one of the best recognitions we ever got was we were on a list of the best takeout in Chicago,
You kidding?
from USA Today, and
Wow.
we were #1, and that was like over the moon big deal because that was the core of what we were doing. But it really does help you build that proof. And then it helps you recruit employees and reach out to partners. So if you think about the 100 people that said no to me at the very beginning, once I was able to send them that article and say, look, like USA Today thinks the food is good, it opened doors. And so it's just about building credibility with your partners and your customers and your future employees, is why that stuff matters. And just encourage people to like apply and look for opportunities like that.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Let's change gears just briefly and just talk about the financial and how did you start your capital when you started your business? That's always a top 1 or 2 questions when folks come in to talk with us. How can how do I get the capital to start my business?
Yeah.
With such an innovative concept, what avenues did you use to secure your capital to start the business? And what advice can you offer someone who is having issues with getting a loan to start their business?
Yeah. So I mean, getting capital is always a struggle. It's still a struggle, even 10 years later. If we need money, it's a lot of work to go get it. So that's one thing to just keep in mind is if you truly need it, you got to spend that time, but hopefully you can really think about every penny you're spending and try to need as little as possible. That's my first piece of advice. Which it just ends up being a lot of time and effort ongoing. But what I started with, I liquidated my savings, my 401k and things like that. I used my credit cards, and I would literally a couple times would transfer my wife's paycheck into our bank account with her permission, of course. But it was that tight at the very beginning. And I think for us in particular, because we were proving out a business concept it was a lot harder to get traditional financing from a bank. But if you're looking at a more traditional business, a restaurant, a barbershop, something that has a predictable income stream and a business model that's been proven before, the SBA loans and local banks are really able to help you think through that. And similar to BACP, can actually help you with your business plan and making sure you don't take on too much debt or too big of a real estate expense. Like, they'll help you refine those numbers because they've looked at 100 different restaurant business plans. So yeah, if you have a traditional business, I would recommend the SBA. If you have an untraditional business, I would think very hard before you do all of those things that I just described. But that sometimes is the only option. And then eventually we were able to prove the business model and raise a little bit of money. But that took 3 or 4 years, and it wasn't available at the very beginning.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Your company focuses heavily on sustainable practices. And can you share why it is important to incorporate that into your business model? It is actually one thing I really, really appreciate about what you're doing. And I will tell you a little bit of a Commissioner Ken story, and that is I think I was having a delicious chocolate chia in this beautiful jar, the green lid, everything. And thank you very much. In fact, I think it took me like 2 helpings to finish it. It's very good. Highly recommend it. And I'm in the kitchen here in the office, washing my dish down, and putting it in the pans. And people are like, no, I think you can just put it down there. Just after you eat, you can go back to the fridge and just put it in the recycling container. I'm like, you don't have to wash it? They're like, I don't think so. So are we supposed to wash our dishes or not?
I mean, I wouldn't leave like a whole half a salad in there, but no, you don't have to like wash it out. You don't leave half eaten food if you can, just kind of, and you should be composting that anyway.
Hey, I'm the
Yeah.
knucklehead that puts all my recyclables through my dishwasher just so when I take it outside to the bin,
It,
we're
it definitely
not collecting
helps.
rodents.
It helps a lot. But we're actually sorting that stuff when it comes back. So we're doing the extra work. It's not a normal recycling bin. Um, but yeah, I think for sustainability in general, the idea was if we're going to start a business from scratch, how do we differentiate ourselves? And honestly, what are some of things that we can do that aren't actually a problem for us compared to a traditional restaurant business or someone who we'd be trying to differentiate ourselves against. And so, for example, we compost all of our organic material in this facility, and we've been doing that for several years now, but it's because we only have one facility. So finding someone that will come and pick it all up and take it out of here is a lot easier than if you have 3 or 4 restaurants. But it was just always thinking about how can we do the right thing and benefit to the business and align with the business model. It's just a big part of how we operate.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, thank you again for sharing your insight and business journey with our attendees. I see a lot of questions which will help sort, and if you've got time, we'll ask you a few more from our viewers and audience today. So now let's transition a bit. What is your go-to meal from Farmer's Bridge, or meals? Maybe do all 3 there.
Right now it's a truffle couscous bowl. I think that one is excellent. It's a little bit, it's one of those high repeat, low trial items because truffle can be a little intimidating, but for the price point and the quality can't be beat. And then when that's not around, I really like the Caesar salad. And it's really cute. My son actually likes it too, so I can buy that and he's super proud of it and it's awesome.
How many ages of your kids again?
7, 5, and 2.
That's great.
Yeah.
Who's eating the Caesar salad?
The 7-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah. The 5-year-old says he doesn't like salad, which I can't tell. Maybe that's just like, he's trying to get a little on my nerves.
Or competing with the brother.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
When you're not running your business, what do you do to relax? Is there such a thing?
I have like 3 things that I spend a lot of time with my family. 3 kids, we live in the city, we like each other, and so that's a big part of it. I love to garden when it's nice in Chicago, so I actually grow a bunch of vegetables and fruits and flowers and things like that. And then
Or your family in the kitchen table, or for your business?
Not for the business. That would not be, I want to make sure anyone watching from the health department knows we are not picking tomatoes on my roof and putting them in the salads, but no, this is for personal consumption only.
Good answer. Good answer.
And then I do like to watch TV. And then the final activity. So my wife is actually a small business entrepreneur as well. So she's kind of going back full circle. So just helping her out a lot and just trying to help her build her business, which is really exciting.
Okay. And tell the audience again, where can our attendees find and locate a nearby farmer's fridge that's convenient to them?
So the best way to do it would be download the app and actually get your first meal free and look in there and see where the closest fridge would be, because it'll use your location to do that. But you can also go to our website, farmersfridge.com, and kind of plug in your address and see all the local spots that you can go to. Those are the two best ways to do it.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you again, Luke. We're going to go into some questions. For those of you who arrived a little bit later in the conversation, we do post this on our YouTube channel, which still will help us with at the end. To show our appreciation and commitment, Luke, for everything that you do for the Chicago small business community, I am presenting to you, normally when we do our small business expos in person, we'd be next to each other, but I'm presenting to you, I have to see if I got it.
Yeah.
Can you kind of see it? It is an honorary license certificate for our most valuable keynote speaker. Don't tell the previous speakers you're getting one. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Recognition, appreciation of commitment to Chicago's business community. So keep getting your regular business license. This is just more or less your home office.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I'll mail it to you.
Great.
Or maybe I'll hang it on the Farmer's Fridge in City Hall. I wish you and the Farmer's Fridge a lot more success in Chicago. And now, Stella, I'm going to turn it back to you. Let's get into some of the questions. I see the questions popping up, Luke, so we could be here for a bit. Back to you, Stella.
We do have a few questions. First question, how did you choose the type of vending machine to purchase? What was the process of the build out in the software? And where did the research come from?
Yeah, so I started on Google, searching, vending machines, salad vending machines, trying to really understand what are all the different options. I actually met with a few people that design machines from scratch, and I could not afford their services. Very happy about that. But ultimately, I went to the vending show, and I was able to really talk to people in person and see what the different options were. And it was great because there was actually a company that built the vending machines and then a company that built the software. And so I was able to work with both of them to bring that together. And the hardest part was actually finding someone. At the beginning, they were covered in reclaimed wood, which most people, when I called a carpenter and said, I want to cover a vending machine in wood in downtown Chicago, they hung up on me. But I eventually found a woodworker that was willing to do it, which is great. But yeah, get to a trade show. So if you're looking at a particular industry, find out what their trade show is, go to that trade show, talk to people there, figure out who in the industry is innovative or can help you out.
How long did it take to get into the airport from idea to actually being in the space?
I think it took 5 years from start to finish. And when someone told me that when I first heard it, I thought, no, I do everything faster than average. And I think it took even longer than I thought. But 5 years is, takes a while.
How do you negotiate contracts or agreements with property owners when it comes to placing the vending machines?
So for the property owners specifically, if we're dealing with like an office building that has space that they are used to leasing out, they typically have a standard contract that they share. And then I was able to get a referral to an attorney that specializes in real estate contracts. You could probably Google that, or there may be BACP tools to point you in the right direction around through mentorship and things like that. But yeah, I used a real estate attorney at the beginning, and then eventually we kind of have a standard agreement now that we send to people that's very simple. So that's how we do that. And then places like the airport, they'll issue an RFP, and there's a huge, you need to review all of that stuff very differently. But for the average commercial real estate deal, a good real estate attorney will do it, and you can negotiate with them up front to fix the price.
What are the top books you read or podcasts you listened to that changed your mindset from thinking like a small business owner to a large company?
Sorry, so say that it was, what is the different things I've read and listened to?
Yes, it changed your mindset from thinking like a small business owner to a large company.
Oh, that's a great question. The number one book that I always recommend is Good to Great. It's written by Jim Collins, and it describes what really great companies have done differently. And it uses a lot of first party research, and it's very simple stuff. And I strongly recommend that book. The basically to go from where I started to a larger company, every time I have a problem, I actually go and I look at, who do I know that can help me, that's been through this before? What books are being written about this? So I was having a really hard time recruiting people. There's great books on how to build out a recruiting function and hire employees well, and specifically on interviewing them and getting the right people in the door, setting the right criteria for hiring them. Another point, we had to build out a board of directors, and I had no idea how to do that. Small businesses typically don't need them, but we were at a point where that we needed that, and I had to read a couple books about how do you do it. Even raising money, I'd never raised money before. And someone told me about a book that would help me raise money. It was called How to Be Smarter Than Your Venture Investors. But like literally, the book for dummies, there's one for everything. So I think you got to like figure out what is the problem you're trying to solve, learn about it. And then the real big secret is a team. So I have an amazing team. There's no way that I'd be sitting here talking to you without a lot of amazing people helping me over the last 10 years. So that's the number one advice is invest in your team, figure out like who are the right people that you need, how do you get them excited about what you're doing, and keep them engaged. But you'll also reach points where things aren't working out as well, and you need to cycle through to a different type of skill set. Be ready for that too, because that's very difficult.
How do you staff for all the logistics?
So we have if you go to our website, you can see we have driver postings for driver roles live, probably in every market that we're in, or a lot of them. So that's a traditional hiring process where we post that on job websites, we post it on our website, and we have local employees in 22 markets now. And then we have supervisors and managers that work with them, and they actually do the on the ground hiring and outreach. But it's a good example where like the team built out the infrastructure to post those jobs, hire people, get those jobs posted in the right places. This is probably the most important part. And then make sure you're paying the right rate to attract good talent.
Still, let me just jump in real quick. Do you also partner with the third parties like DoorDash or Uber Eats?
We do occasionally. We don't have like a built-in integration. I actually, when Grubhub first started doing, or when I first started doing those deliveries, I did them myself. So, my wife and I would drive around and drop off the food to just get a little extra money to help pay the bills. And today it's on there, but it's not an official partnership. They're sending a driver to the machine. They're using their own credit card. But it's mostly because it's inventory based, and we haven't invested the money yet to give them real-time visibility into our inventory.
Two more questions. Where do you prepare your food, and how many customers a day are you serving?
So we prepare the food right where I'm sitting, not obviously in this room, but we have a cold refrigerated food, like fresh food production facility right across the street from Midway Airport in the Midway Business District. We started in a shared kitchen. I mentioned Kitchen Chicago on the west side. We graduated from there into a dedicated kitchen space in Fulton Market. I think it's actually for lease right now. It's 1321 West Lake Street. And then we were able to find this space as another company was moving out. And so we've been in here for about 5 years.
And how many locations are your vending machines located?
We have 1,200 plus vending machine sites and about 500 plus retail sites. So that's like a Costco or a Target or a Hudson newsstand.
I don't know what. Okay, well, that's awesome. Ken?
Yeah, no, I saw a couple ones. Luke, we have a Southwest Airlines flight attendant was on who appreciates the vending machine in the back of the house flight attendant waiting area. And I do appreciate, there's a lot of comments. They're all very positive.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the Southwest flight attendant and attendants, because I'm also a frequent traveler. I'm an A-list Southwest traveler, and you know, anything we can do to keep those flights going and you guys fed is great. So thank you.
And I think my favorite is someone I lost it in here. Someone at the merchandise bar who's actually having one of your salads. I think a Cobb said they said while they're watching the webinar. So there you go. Thank you very, very much. What a just really an interesting, unique concept. I'm still giving you credit for all those hours and hours and thousands of miles you're putting on your car when you're the salesman. That thinking power and the books you were listening to. But I very much appreciate it. Stella, one more time, where can folks go? Because some folks came in a little bit late in terms of, and when will we post on our YouTube channel, please?
This expo is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. Again, that's youtube.com/Chicago BACP. As a reminder, by joining the Remote Expo today, you will receive the BACP Resource Guide, which features information, resources to start and grow your business. The guide will be emailed to you within the next few days. Thank you again to Commissioner Meyer and Luke, and congratulations on your success. We look forward to staying connected with everyone that attended our expo today. To find out more about our upcoming expos, please visit chicago.gov/biz expo. Again, that's chicago.gov/biz expo. And to learn more about our upcoming small business education webinars, please visit chicago.gov/BACP webinars. Again, that's chicago.gov/BACP webinars. And thanks again.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me.